Try to avoid just thinking, oh, someone has Gemini energy, they must talk a lot, or their minds are active. The mind is doing what the mind is doing for that individual. So you could think of it as this kind of communication, me to you. Hey, what do you think? That's the base level. That's just personality, right? That's really the I think. You could look at it as vertical communication, communication of personality to higher self. The higher self has a job for the personality. And the more one can quiet the personality via meditation, the easier it is for those impressions, musings to come through. So that's really what Gemini energy is in its deepest form.
Yo, more power to the poets, make room for the righteous. Anything I touch turn to gold like Midas. I see the snakes, ninjas want to bite ya. Say they vibrate Drake, they not like us. We all up.
What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. Today, we're going to be talking about a few misconceptions of Gemini energy and setting those straight. So let's get into it. So before I get into this, I want to send a birthday to all the Geminis celebrating birthdays this week. Shout out to one of my favorites, Lenny Kravitz, who turned 60 today and has released a new album, Blue Electric Light. If you are a fan of Lenny, check that out. It's a complete masterpiece. So, you know what? I'll actually start this by just, in fact, about myself, I think you guys would maybe be surprised to know. One of them being that I'm a music connoisseur. I'm open to all types of music as long as it speaks to my soul. I'm a huge fan of Lenny Kravitz, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and the Roots, traditional hip hop band. Those are my favorites. You might be surprised, you may not. When you listen to my music, you'll definitely be able to hear all of those influences for sure. Y'all know your boy is Jamaican, so I definitely listen to a lot of reggae. Yeah, man, more fire. All right, so get into our first misconception of Gemini energy. And it's kind of what really led me to make this video. So it's Gemini season. You know, people will make their posts about the signs and stuff. But I just feel like there's a lot of superficial understanding around this sign. So one of the big misconceptions of Gemini is that it deals with talking, chatting. Hey, I think this, I think that. Very small fraction. Gemini at the deeper level. Now, y'all know that's what we do. We seek to service all levels of the zodiac here in expression while helping you figure out those various levels. Check out my book, Astrology of the Matrix, to learn more. On a deeper level, Gemini is the antakarana, which simply means the bridge between personality and higher self. So what you get when you tune in here to Gemini Brown is a full transmission of my activated antakarana. I let the personality lay back and I let the higher self come through and do what it do. So simply put, the antakarana, like I said, is the bridge between personality and higher self, which everyone can access. Everyone can access. And that is the highest level of communication as far as Gemini is concerned. So then going further with that, the misconception that it's about talking and just communication that way. No, it's all forms of communication. I need to communicate an idea. I can paint it. I can verbalize it. I can use my hands. I could make up a whole dialect. I could rhyme it musically. All of this is Gemini. All of this is forms of communication. So try to avoid just thinking, oh, someone has Gemini energy, they must talk a lot, or their minds are active. The mind is doing what the mind is doing for that individual. There's the higher self. The higher self has a job for the personality. And the more one can quiet the personality via meditation, the easier it is for those impressions, musings to come through. So that's really what Gemini energy is in its deepest form. All right. So you could think of it as this kind of communication, me to you. Hey, what do you think? That's the base level. That's just personality, right? That's really the I think. You could look at it as vertical communication, communication of personality to higher self. You can further study the Lover's card in tarot for further understanding. Next misconception about Gemini energy kind of doubles back on the chatterbox kind of thing, but I'll make this distinction. Gemini suns aren't necessarily overtly chatty. In fact, I would say Gemini moons, and of course we want to see where the Mercury ends up, but Gemini moons, because the moon is representing that inner self, that soul, and can have so many impressions. If the person doesn't have that filter of think before you speak, you very much so get that atypical chatty Gemini type. But that's more so you're going to find within the moons versus the suns. Remember, your sun is your uniqueness. So if we have someone with a sixth house Gemini sun, and let's just say their Mercury is also equally here in the sixth house, right? Or no, let's put the Mercury in the fifth. Let's put it a little bit behind sun. This may be someone who they don't necessarily got to talk a lot about other things. They could be quiet in their friends group. Let's say they, have a Venus that inclines them to come off mysterious. When you see, they'll talk the most about sixth house matters. So this might be a Gemini that's always going through some shit, and they're talking about the things they're going through. Like, damn, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Damn, You may find them, if they're inclined health-wise in this day and age, teaching about things regarding physical health, staying disciplined, things like that. Wherever that Gemini sun is where the person speaks, not most eloquently, but more than likely where they're going to be most passionate about a said thing to speak upon that. So yeah, I find Gemini moons to be way more chatty and on a social level, more superficial than a Gemini sun. And the same could be said for the Venus. So it's very interesting. I can even say another misconception is that Gemini is overly friendly. This is going to be other Gemini suns. This is going to be other positions more than that Gemini sun. So a Venus in Gemini, these are people who think, oh, if I go somewhere and I've talked to 10 people in a room, I've connected with 10 people. But the elevated Gemini, which could be like the sun, knows like, if I'm not learning anything from these interactions, then or there's any depth, this just may be talk for the sake of talk. So there's little subtle differences within the signs that'll fall within Gemini that act out these different variant levels. Okay. So another misconception, I'm aware of this from being a practicing astrologer of all these years. There's a misconception that Geminis can't be loyal, particularly in relationships. And from my experience, from what I've seen, some of the long-lasting marriages, there's two parts to this, involving Geminis. And I'm keeping this to I'm giving you an idea of when Gemini is prominent. So I can be talking about Gemini suns, I could be talking about Gemini moons and Venus. I'm speaking in the sense of prominent. Now, what would make Gemini prominent in the chart? One, if that planet is ending up in an angle. Even more so if it's like the 4th or the 7th, right? So it's really having a strong definition on the chart. If it's connected to the ruler of the ascendant, okay? Things of that nature. When this is the case, I find that the Gemini types Sun, Moon, Venus, tend to, well, I'll say this, a little more difficult for the moons. It's a little bit more difficult for the moons. The Gemini moon for a long-term marriage needs a stabilized partner. They need someone who gives them enough of the Gemini freedom, right, to think and to be curious and to have space, but at the same time can ground them back. So of the positions, it's the most difficult for the moon, but Venus in Gemini, Gemini suns, Mercury and Geminis can have long-standing marriages. And I can reveal to you why that is, but I just encourage you to look at Gemini, the energy as a whole, and think, why is that? Why would Gemini have favor in regards to relationships? Now, and I'm just going to leave it on this one thing. Here's the real life proof. We got 𝐦𝐤𝐤𝐿. We got the Kendrick Lamars of the world. Ye is now divorced, right? But him and Kim, in terms of being in Hollywood, they had a pretty long marriage. And the list goes on of Geminis who are domesticated. And you'll find that these are the Geminis who are like out in the public with their spouse. They keep that to themselves. So I just encourage you all to ponder upon this. So the proof is in the pudding. Gemini is an energy that can thrive within domestication. All right, so this one isn't a misconception. It's a fun fact. Gemini is a sign of agility, doing various things. So when there are planets within Gemini, the individual in some capacity is going to have an inclination to want to juggle many things. I'm here to let you know, Geminis, you have to focus on. You have to master one thing in order to be able to juggle other things, right? So focus on an area of mastery. But when it comes to what I call triple-double, no assist, Tyler Perry vibes, Kanye vibes, very much so doing everything your own, right? Capable of doing it all. Chris Brown, the Mercury and Gemini, has this. When it comes to being able to be agile, or multi-hyphenated, multi-disciplines in multiple aspects, the Gemini energy that thrives the most with this that you can is naturally would be Mercury in Gemini in its own sign, but take it from a Mercury in Gemini, the shit's it's not easy. There are aspects that is beautiful because the planet is in its own sign, but the energy is crazy. You just have to be able to handle it, okay? But if you can get a hold on, I always say it like this, y'all. Gemini energy is like a hyper-ass little kid. You gotta hold its hand, and you gotta direct it. I'm telling you. If you have Gemini energy and it sounds like you, see me for a consultation. I can help. So Mercury in Gemini, and then Mars in Gemini. Mars in Gemini. Now, not just, and like I said, this is about finding success and balance with it. So a Mars in Gemini with the correct ascendant and with that Mars ending up in the right position and having other supports can be very efficient. Very, okay? And I'll say this. Mars and Gemini women are lots of fun. Mind you, my older sister's a Mars and Gemini, so I've always been around the energy. But it's that one more on the crazy side too. But yeah, I feel like that's one you could really get a lot out of that energy. So here are just some few misconceptions and fun facts about Gemini. Chime in. Let me know what you think. If you need a reading, holla at me. Check out my website. I'm running some specials right now. Check out my book, Astrology of the Matrix. Till next time. Peace.
Yo, more power to the poets, make room for the righteous. Anything I touch turn to gold like 𝐬𝐤𝐬𝐷. I see the snakes, ninjas want to bite ya. Say they vibrate Drake, They not like us. We all about suspension through ascension. Solid as a rock as I'm cutting through the tension. Not to mention my crown rooted deep within the earth. Battling and straddling the shadow is the work. You're popping perks, looking dusty and hazy. Instead of working out, you took the rock that's lazy. Call me crazy, but you ain't looking too active. A fool achieves more than a genius that's distracted. You better practice, you not AI trick. Niggas techno flow, wearing AI fits. Throwing AI brick shit. Whenever hear again, my music is eternal, long lasting like pyramids. Money on my mind, getting paid in full. Nalo been on the grind since grade school, and I'm way cool. I ain't never gon' prove it. The man on the mic, and I ain't never gon' lose it. Play with your life, you just might lose it. I stay on the flight, catch a nigga jet blue it. In and out of states on dates with the baddest. Soft for the clay, they reminding me of Cassius. I ain't the one to play, homie, I'm a hazard. Yeah, watch me shock the world like static. Not a silly boy, never regal. Not a Philly boy, but I still rep the Eagles. Pep in my step, niggas know the Steezel. The game that I rap, they compare us to the Beatles. Working day and night, keep the head above. Yeah, I be selling like lemon, all you need is love. I spit crack, homie. This be the drug, you need that. Yeah, Nalo be the plug. They hide behind stream, we don't know y'all. They soft like cream, and niggas don't go hard.